I'm actually only standing up to speak to this first slide, and then we'll hand over to our experts to my left over here. I'm just going to take you through a quick overview of what we're wanting to hit on in the next hour and a half. We've got Tureia and Damien. We've also got Serena at the back from Whānau Tahi, so they're going to be showing us some cool things with the system. But what I wanted to touch on is just one of those points up there before I hand it over to Tureia to go through in more detail, and that's the SRI module. And so what Whānau Tahi have done is they've configured the system to enable an SRI analysis. And I'm going to go through a bit of an SRI or an impact analysis later on in the session, but just a high level, SRI stands for social return on investment. And what it does, it looks at all the activities and the intervention that we're providing to whānau, the cost of that intervention, and then it looks at the outcomes and benefits achieved as a result of that intervention, and it does a bit of a comparison between them to show all our dollars in to that intervention, the benefit of that intervention, and the financial value created through that. And so that's quite a remarkable feat for us in New Zealand, because it's going to be our first IT solution, Ngāti that will hopefully be accredited in the Social Value International Framework, which is under Social Value Principles. So just wanted to mihi to Whānau Tahi around that. After our Whānau Tahi boys have presented to us, we're going to have Kristen have a bit of a korero about one of our collective impact initiatives in Tāmaki, Tātou, and talk about how they've configured some data collection tools to enable insights for their practitioners. And then I'm going to have a bit of a korero with her as well about how we analyse some of that information to get some trends from the data. And then we're just going to finish off with a bit of a impact analysis and how they're analysing some of their data to show the intervention versus the benefits achieved. And it wouldn't be a workshop if you guys weren't doing any work, so we're going to have a bit of a brainstorm session at the end. And so we're going to look at getting some insight and intel from your expertise on the ground later on as well. We'll go through that later on. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to Tureia to kick us off. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Brad. Kia ora, whānau. One more time. Kia ora, whānau. There we go. Alright, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm today at Moxon, currently the CEO of Whānau Tahi, and I also have another hat. I'm a board member for Te Pau Matakana, and another hat, I'm a board member for the MedTech Corps. So great to see you all. Some of you I know, some of you don't know so well, so welcome, welcome. I just want to reflect on the conference as we've gone so far. It's been a great couple of days, and I really enjoyed the panel discussion yesterday. It all just went to hell. It was great. Cool, so I get to talk about some of the new enhancements that we're going to be rolling out here at Whānau Tahi. So Brad's already touched on the social return on investment module, and that it will be accredited by Social Value International. We've got a mobile application, so we get to take you through that, what it looks like. So currently in its form, it's for kaimahi, and to take it out into our communities and then enter in data from their phone. We've also got our scheduler, so it's a way to organise your mahi a little bit easier. We've got an address lookup, so that allows us to geocode or get the longitude and latitude for all of our different outcomes, and then if you use it in conjunction with Power BI, you can do some really cool stuff. So yeah, that's going to be us. Hand it over to David.
Oh, kia ora te whānau. Good to be home again, and here we are. You know, spending a few months in the US, we get asked, well, what is Whānau Tahi? And we've got asked that here, and it's sometimes hard to answer. This is what we've come up with to describe what it is that you all have. And it's primarily a tool that allows you to increase visibility for whānau and kaimahi. Allows us to cultivate whānau and empower individuals. Allows us to measure impact and help our organisations to be more efficient and use resources more effectively. So that's it. So everything that we're doing ties into achieving one or more of these goals. So for example, what we're looking at today is the scheduler. So there's a scheduling tool that I'll show you a little bit about that helps us to use resources more effectively and gives that greater visibility about who's doing what. We have the SROI module, which is of course a tool that helps us to measure the impact that we're having. there is the address lookup, which makes it easier for kaimahi to enter in an address for a whānau and make sure that that's validated. And pai rawa atu, I'll explain that when we get to it. That's my surprise for the day. And then we have the kaimahi mobile app. And of course that also improves visibility and helps streamline processes, allows people to do things in the field on a phone. They don't have to return to the office and update stuff. So let's look at the scheduler. So the scheduler is designed to, it may not work in every environment, but it's great when you have a centralised booking process. We deployed this to one of the sites that we have in the US, and what they do is every referral comes in to a centralised location, and then they book appointments on their staff. So staff members, kaimahi, do not handle their own bookings. It's done for them by the central administration group. And so the scheduler has proved invaluable for them. And it looks like this. I've just got a little run through. You can go in Whānau Tahi to the scheduler, and it's going to bring up a schedule board, and it will list the staff members and it will show their availability for different time slots. And then at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a list of appointment requests or referrals that have come in. And so what we do is we are going to come down to the bottom of the screen. Do I have a pointer here? No. And literally drag that appointment onto the board to the time that we want to book the appointment. So 10 a.m, done. And we'll grab another one, and maybe we'll book this one on Chris for 11:30 a.m, allow him half an hour to have a breather. And then we'll get another one. And he doesn't get lunch today, so he'll just do it straight after that second appointment. The other thing the scheduler does is it allows us to update the status of these appointments. For example, we'll take that first one and say, look, the client has arrived, so we're now in progress. And so that means we're currently meeting with the client. This other one, maybe the client didn't turn up, so we can mark that as it did not show. And so what we're doing is we're collecting data about what's going on and that we can then report on. Here's another one here. Maybe the client called and cancelled the appointment. And let's do one more on the last one and say that the kaimahi cancelled it for some reason. And you'll see there's colour coding to tell us what the different statuses are. You can also change status to something else. Say we've completed the appointment now, and so it just marks it as completed. These appointments will, of course, update and reflect on the plan. What I'm doing here is we'll just now reschedule that appointment so we can move it to a different time or even reassign it to a different kaimahi, and it's all drag and drop. So the goal of this was to make it as easy as possible to handle those appointment bookings, reduce the number of clicks and typing that you have to do, but also give greater visibility because you can look at it at a glance and understand who's available for what. There are some other things in there that I won't get into in too much detail, but you can actually go to a full competency matrix, meaning that you can say, I need an addiction counsellor to meet with someone at 11, and then it will show you who's available and who's qualified for counselling people with addictions. Or you might say, I need a tamariki aura nurse to do an appointment at 2 o'clock, and it will show you who are your qualified RNs who could do that appointment at that time. So that's a little bit about the scheduler. If you want to get more advanced, it can include a map, so that if you have someone who's doing home visits, it will work out the most efficient route for them to go and do those visits. The SROI module, as Brad has alluded to, is simply the capture of the information needed to produce an SROI analysis. So it starts by defining a project. That project will have a number of stakeholder investments. For example, if MSD is funding something, then MSD is a stakeholder and the amount of funding that they're providing is the investment. There could be other sources of funding or other forms of funding, like volunteers. They might be stakeholders and they've put in their time, that's an investment. And of course, whānau and clients are stakeholders too. From there, we then define the stakeholder outcomes. So that will require a bit of work to identify what are the outcomes that whānau have actually realised. And this all draws on the principles of SROI that have been talked about and that are promoted by SVA, Social Value Aotearoa. And then we have, of course, those stakeholder outcomes. Once you've defined them, you then link them to the whānau outcomes inside Navigator. And so we can say, we look at the plans and say, well, there are certain outcomes on our plans that correspond to those stakeholder outcomes. And then what that means is that immediately all of the time that you have put into achieving those outcomes becomes part of the cost of achieving that stakeholder outcome. Add to that a library of financial proxies that are in the system which give you a value for the outcome achieved. We move from there to defining a cohort or a group of people who have experienced particular outcomes. And so that could be, for example, you can define it by an age range, a length of time in service, and any number of other demographic criteria. So you might say, well, this outcome of improved mental health has been experienced by tamariki between 11 and 13 who were in the program for 18 months. And so you can define these different cohorts which will experience the outcomes to different degrees. And then that goes to define your impact measurement of how you've realised those. So that's the input, that's all inside Whānau Tahi Navigator. And then we provide a tool that produces the workbook that has the analysis in an approved format. And so it'll list down the outcomes that were achieved, your rationale for some of the decisions that were made, which were all captured in the system, and then the values that are captured. And then the other part of that comes down to a numerical analysis where you arrive finally at the SROI ratio of, in this case, 1.81 to 2, depending on whether you're including cash or not. Yes?
So the financial proxies, are they recent in the system?
You'll need to enter those into the system. The plan over time is that in conjunction with Social Value Aotearoa, there will be a library that can be shared and will be included as part of the system. Okay, and to the extent that you find something in the library that is compatible with your stakeholder outcomes, then you can obviously use that. So that's a little bit about the SROI analysis workbook. We're currently just in the final stages of going through the accreditation process. So that means that will be accredited by an international body as being a method for doing this. It doesn't remove the need to have a well-defined logic model, which obviously you have to do, and really you have to do that even to use Navigator. If you haven't worked out how you're achieving outcomes, you'll struggle to use Navigator. So that's that. So we'll now move to a demonstration, and we're going to show these things. And there's going to be some magic stuff happening at the back in a moment, and then the screen will change. Just while we're waiting, just coming back to those first principles, everything that we're doing with Whānau Tahi Navigator is all about those four things. How do we make your organisation more efficient and use resources more effectively? How do we give greater visibility to whānau? And when we look at the apps, I hope you'll get a sense of where we're going to help whānau actually participate more in the digital sphere and actually contribute and provide information about their own progress. The long term, where you can see this going is long term, it would be great if whānau can sort of self-navigate and then use these tools to navigate their own journey into well-being and then draw on your resources when they hit obstacles or face particular bumps along the way. Or they go, how can I accelerate my journey? And then you're the experts on how to do that and provide resources to support them. I'll keep going. I'll give you an example. Oh, question.
So, within the SROI model, has Treasury agreed that as a mechanism for understanding of outcomes? Because that's one of the challenges in dealing with funders is show me some output data. And have they agreed that model? Because
I'll invite Brad to talk about that.
So they haven't formally endorsed SROI as the model to use to assess whether investments are effective and whether they're getting the right return. It is a internationally recognised model though by Social Value International, and it's based on social accounting, cost benefit analysis and things like that, so it's got some fundamentals in accounting. It's been out for about 15 years. It started off in the UK, and so it's generally accepted as a model to assess a return on investment on interventions in the social space. Treasury has signed off on our policy in terms of our outcomes and framework for Matakana, and that kind of aligns with the overarching kaupapa of that. But they haven't formally signed off or endorsed this as the model to use to assess the effectiveness of our interventions and investments.
have any of the other ministries signed off? Ministry of Health?
So we had, in terms of our policy or this model?
Both the policy and the model.
No.
Having said that, I will say it's a valuable model to demonstrate or tell the story of what we've achieved. We're not suggesting that it is the only model that should be used.
So just to add, we are having conversations with Treasury and the social investment agency around us, and they're looking to partner with Matakana and also our two experts over there, Dr. John Wilco and Dr. Sneha, who are our outcomes measurement experts in SRI practice. So they're looking to partner with us to develop the measurement framework, in particular the way that we're building the outcomes by financial model.
And I only raise that because Treasury has a number around diabetes and the impact of diabetes, and they put a number on it. And when you dig into that number, there's no basis for it other than, I argue it, but it would be great if Treasury were to accept a social model.
They developed a CVAX tool, which is the cost of that. That's one component of it, but we need to look at the value of our stakeholders. And just go back to the question earlier here, it's, we've got to be mindful of setting a library of financial proxies that covers all our whānau, because whānau value things differently and experience change as well. So it's got to be relevant to the whānau in each of the communities, and that's why we want to inform about that.
All right. Are we good to go? Maybe.
Well,
Oh, okay. All
any
right.
more questions?
Yes. Sam.
So the follow-on is, what are the sources of your financial profits? Are you using the governmental sources or other sources
So
for your library?
I give an example at the end of the presentation of a couple of government proxies, which is actually designed to use it as
Global value exchange.
Use some other ones as well. So one example is an improvement in motivation, and we submitted that as an we created it for a mental health program in Taikoto, and the proxy that we used was the cost of an outward bound course. So when they looked at the changes for whānau in that cohort, and they looked at the similar changes that the attendees on this program received, they were quite similar, so they rationalised that to say, hey, the cost of this program, this outward bound program, was the financial proxy to use for the improvement in motivation for this cohort of whānau. So that's the type of exercise that I should do.
So ultimately, the benefit of the platform is you can have a library
So
of
the
all
benefit-
these proxies that
That's right. So you can inform your own things, and then at least you've got a proxy. It might not be the same value in the community, but it might be a similar leadership in that example. Yeah.
we're out of questions.
Okay. I think we're having some technical issues. All right. So, yeah. Okay. We'll move to the app. So that means you won't see the address hookup. So just to explain, I'll talk about it. So what we've done with the address lookup is connected it to the New Zealand Post database of addresses. And what it means is when you're entering a new client or whānau information, you just start typing the address and it will start pulling up matches for the address. So for example, if I type 201 space TI, it'll start pulling up addresses, validated address that match, it'll be like 201 Titirangi or 201 Te Tihi Ave or whatever from around the country. And then the more you type, of course, the more specific it gets. You're familiar with this because you've probably seen it done on a number of other websites that you've used. And so all we've done is put that into Whānau Tahi. It also means that when that address is selected, some geocoding information comes down that allows that data now to be matched against New Zealand statistics database and a number of other, it means you can do other geographical analysis. And as Brad will come to when we explain about Power BI, that provides a number of mapping tools that allow you to see your data mapped out on various types of analysis. So that's very useful. That's really the foundation. The whole purpose of doing that is to get good address data so that it can translate into geographical analysis. So that's that tool, and that's available to roll out now. Okay, here's my iPhone. So we're going to show you a prototype of a Kaimahi app that is currently being tested. So Serena's going to operate it from the back, and I'm going to tell you what she's doing. Okay, so she's going to tap on this Kaimahi app. And it starts. And so the first thing it's doing is pulling up a list of your clients. We're on a slow data connection, but here it comes. She's typing in the name of somebody that she's about to visit or talk to, Jane Red. And once she selects that, at the bottom half of the screen, it's going to pull up the information for the red whānau. Everybody turn your phones off. Oh, here it comes. Okay. So there she is. She lives on Golf Road. She selected that whānau. It brings up some more details. It's going to show you the members of the whānau. So we can see Jane, Joe, Jack and Jill. You'll see at the top, you can go to look at the assessments, and then there's two types of assessments that are here. The Matakana snapshot and the Takoto health assessments. And you can see they've been repeated over 4 times in the case of Matakana, 5 whānau health assessments. And from here you can either add new ones or review existing ones, and then it's pulling up some of the data from one of those recent assessments. So again, this is a prototype, but it's being tested. We're looking for feedback from people on what sort of things you'd like to see the app doing. But what we're doing is we have something that's working today and being tested out. So that's the state of that Kaimahi app. It's simple, it's designed to do one task, but make it easy for Kaimahi to just do that one task while they're out in the field, perhaps with the client, and not have to do some data entry later on. Okay. Now,
scheduler, will that be part of the app to put a profile or contact over the duration?
It's not part of this app, but that scheduler information does have a specific app that allows you to do that, and it also includes that routing capability. Now what we're now going to do is show you a different one, and for this I'm going to actually go to the back of the room and make you all look in the other direction. So it'd be good exercise for your necks. And the reason I've got to do this because the signal strength from the podium to the back of the room doesn't let me reach that far. Oh, thanks. I got a mic. All right. So what I'm going to do is show you this, what we're calling the Rarawa atu. I'm not trading, it's yellow. Here we go. Oh, it's asking me to slide in. This is the one bane of these phones. Signing in takes a long time. Because I have a long sign-in name. This is Whātua 2018 in case you're trying to follow along. Yeah. Okay, let me try that again.
No, my code here doesn't cover it.
Yeah, I thought I did. Really? No. Oh, that's embarrassing. It's, I might have to, what I'll do, we'll let Brad do his thing and I'll sort this out. But I do want to show you this. I think you'll like it. So, thanks, Brad.
Hi, I'm not Brad. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get a bit of interaction, we'll get something going on for everybody. So on everyone's table, there's a big bit of paper and then a bunch of post-its. You should all have pens. And so basically what I want you to do is to go, use your post-its and then you can nominate one person from your table to report back afterwards. So we've got about 5 minutes here where you just write down ideas on the piece of paper around what you would want from a kaimati and a whānau app. So if you think of it from a whānau perspective, what benefits would they get from it? So if you use the example of something like Manage My Health, people can access their information on an application. So what would you want to see in there? And then we'll just give you about 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll get each table to report back on that. For whānau, yeah. So thanks. We'll start at this table, and we'll start looking our way around.
Just read a couple of
Whānau. A few ideas generated on Aupōuri. Self-directed and organised appointments by whānau on the app. So I take that to mean whānau identify an issue or something they needed to do. They're able to identify it on the app and they will activate the appointment. Similarly, there's another one there, maybe activate self-referrals as well to whatever agencies that are there. Also for the kaiarahi, the whānau and the kaiarahi, they can track their success and each little victory, a few points on the board can just invoke a bit more get up and go to strive for better. Library of resources connected to my whānau goals. So I know sometimes as a kaiarahi you're sort of stuck in how do I navigate my whānau through this little challenge here. It'd be good to have a library of resources like an app already there, a pathway maybe a suggested pathway there, could be localised as well. Whānau can take or upload pics as evidence or successes. That would be awesome. I know a lot of our trouble is getting evidence for some of the mahi we do, so it would be just awesome at the point of contact if whānau could do that for us, or for themselves I should say. Scheduling appointments with preferred providers in the area. Yeah, that's a self-assessment tool for today. And an electronic journal, that's a cool one as well. Good way for whānau to maybe take a step back and see exactly what they've done. Sometimes they've got their head in beneath the bushes and they can't And when they take a step back and say, hey, I've actually done all of this. I know a lot of whānau, that sort of happens a lot. You know, something to solve daily problems, you can access everywhere. And maybe the approved stakeholders, they can all have a view of the plan at the same time, no matter what they are. Tēnā rā tātou katoa.
On that table, this view, Dave.
Says everything else.
Morena. So another couple ones that we had were if they were to see what we had put in and they didn't quite agree or wanted to edit what we had put in, that they could edit it. Maybe bilingual, so they could pick which language they would want to see their progress in. See which services and which staff they are working with and who can see it. Oh yes, and the opportunity for them to provide feedback and suggestions.
You didn't even nominate me, whether I liked it or not. Oh,
You had a pre-written one anyway, didn't you?
okay.
You had a pre-written already.
So we've got a few, some have already been said. So things like the edit function. What have we got here now? A group SMS, so setting up a group's message, so say you've got a program to being delivered or something to a group of whānau, you can send out a group notification, whether it's a menu update or anything like that. Same sort of thing with the photos, ability to add and send images like both ways, I think would be really cool. The notifications. So notifications to whānau or even notifications back the other way, but typically around appointments like Whātua and people like Takoto. Rural locations is quite an issue, so driving an hour and a half one direction into the wop-wops, I had to explain to these guys what the wop-wops were. You know, in terms of their effective use of resource, the notifications would be really good if they can send us messages to say we're not home yet because we're pulling a cow out of the ditch or something like that. Oh yeah, same thing around the ability for whānau to update, especially in terms of and you guys talked about a little bit of goals and those completion dates in terms of reporting, that it's hard sometimes to follow up with whānau to see if they actually did it or what they actually did it, and we know how important dates are being in alignment are. So having that for whānau to say, yep, I've done this, I've booked this appointment or whatever, would make it a lot easier for both them and us. What's that one? Prompts providers whānau. Geocoding visits for staff for using the app, and yeah, just anything else?
Okay, so just trying to see which ones that you can we were big on the reminders, the appointments and DNAs, just so that they keep a schedule as well of what's happening. Lots of stuff about progress to date, achievements, stuff yet to complete, what their plans are, and everything that has happened with their plans to date. Integrate with Outlook. Easier to enter notes and file of whānau. Opportunities that will add value to the whānau journey. Appointments with the info, so the reason why they're going. Sometimes our whānau have so many appointments that they don't know who's who. Whānau order events in the community, so they know that what's around. Networks that add value to the whānau. And whānau will navigate a list and profile information so that they can choose where they move. Oh, and the app is free.
The app is free, but nobody will allow in-app purchases.
Kia ora whānau, our table was full of some fantastic ideas, so kia ora to our tepu. We looked at personal details so they can change the info that's already there, whānau plan status, so it's their vision, their health literacy, looking up information for conditions that may not be aware of, so diabetes, takes you to a proper website, possibly to be able to get some information if you're not in front of the experts. Prompt multiple key service and key resource. Whānau are informed and involved with their wellness plan. It's a speedy, timely service plan, so the service provides a quicker assistance for individuals who may be a little more stressed than usual. Unable to go to the next page to all and complete it, so you're not going to go back over again. All whānau are included in the plan. Lots of information sharing. Pop-up reminders, the correct mapping to helpful needs, so when an appointment's booked, you book with the right kainahi. You have a voiceover colour-coded for illiterate whānau. Data is used to improve services for future initiatives. Services enable higher likelihood of whānau being able to opt in and reach out for help. One of the things we talk about this yesterday was whānau sometimes don't put their hand up, so they might easy to follow. An opportunity for whānau data to be shared across collective partnerships, so that our members or the whānau we help them don't have to repeat forms and fill out across different services we're moving through to. Kaumahi job is so much easier with the time management and the scheduling, and they can provide more time and resource in the actual solutions rather than the scheduling, and everything else was mentioned.
Lucky last. We've only got a few additional ones. Basically, it's talking about the principles, the part of you should see the plans all the way through. Must be user-friendly, must be simple. The additional one would be to have an ability for, say, those who aren't up with apps to be taught how to use them, like Whātua. Because they're not, well, some would benefit from that. Time slots to be flexible because we don't operate from an hour slot each time. And yeah, just having control over their plans, being able to see it, that is it.
Alright, thank you everybody for that, that's cool. So we'll come around and pick up those pieces of paper, and then they can help inform how we'll roll out the app. Damon, do you?
Yeah, I'll show you this thing.
Cool, thank you, Damon.
Let's hold my phone back up. And here's this is our little app. I can choose the client that I'm going to go and visit, and then pull up their Matakana snapshot, or it could be whatever assessment you've designed yourself. And so this is a Matakana snapshot showing the initial or baseline one in yellow, and then the purple is showing the most current assessment. And so of course where you see those moving out, that's good, and where it's regressed, like on the access to services, something's gone wrong. But what I can do now, I can sit with my whānau and then start making some notes on here. So I'm going to go, hey, this is fantastic what you guys have achieved around there, there and there. Something's not gone right for you there, that's a bit sad. But this month, what we're going to do is let's focus on this area here and this one over here. And finally, I'll just offer some encouragement and say, hey, keep on trying rather than, can't spell right. There we go. And so I do that, and then I share this, and I can send it to them by text or email, or post it to their Facebook. We won't do that. But I'll email. So I'll email this to myself. Here we go. And I hit send. Yeah, that's my alternate name. Yeah, fake name. So then that comes into my email, and that's what I get. Oh no, that's not. Let me go to my email. Oh, here we go. It just came up. Just received it. It's coming down here. Here it is. And I get a little picture of the chart with all the markings and notes sent to my client. Alright, so that's a way that we can offer encouragement and support and give them a look back at the progress they've made. Right, so that's available now. And it can be either Matakana or any other tool that you're using in your provider group.
So is it free?
Yes. There's some cost, of course, to set it up, to tailor it to what you want to do. If you just wanted to use this one exactly, then the cost is very minimal. It's just training, really. I'll plug it in. So there you go. Yes?
I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but we have the ability to sign, because a lot of our assessments require the whānau to sign, and we don't have to carry the paperwork. Just in this app, we could just get to sign.
Yeah, look, there's some different ways to deal with that. Yeah, so there's possibilities around that.
Yeah, and the last part was that I'm not an IT person, and I just wanted to know how far away are we from using this kind of app without any data, like in the future, how far away we, because we have to run out of data and we're at the whānau, or we're out in the rural area, there's no servicing. Are we kind of far away from that?
Look, I'll be quite frank with you. That's actually becoming less and less like it. Where most organisations, Microsoft included, they're making assumptions that you're always online. So that's a challenge. If you talk to like Vodafone these days, they're giving 12 gigabytes as a standard data cap. So it's becoming less of an issue. Yeah, so I don't have a lot to offer in that respect. That's where we're at today.
I'm just wondering around data sovereignty and whānau maintaining control over these things. Have you done a lot of work around exploring whānau sovereignty of this data?
Look, we have a data model that provides for security that you can implement on a number of different tiers of access. You can control who has access to the plan and who doesn't. We do acknowledge that whānau own this data, and part of, I believe all of you will have informed consent procedures in place so that whānau know that there is a certain amount of data going on.
Trump is much tougher.
But yeah, something on your phone.
You got a new highlight on your phone.
Your uncle.
Trump is much tougher.
Like your uncle.
That's my family.
Ngāti Tahi te kātau nei Ngāti Whānau Tahi te naku. Mihi waki o koutou ngā tāne pō, ngā tangata pō ki o koutou mahi Whānau Tahi. Tēnā kata, tēnā koutou. just a recommendation I put is that Whānau Tahi actually goes and have the same kōrero with hospitals, and then trying to figure out how we can make our viral systems, or what it's called, the digital systems, talk to each other in terms of referrals and that. So I've learned a lot from the systems we're calling, so if there's any way we can get into our hospitals and have the same kōrero with them and make what Whānau Tahi here is compatible with whatever data system they're using, that would be great for the farmers. The other thing too is to maybe addressing our wahine kōrero over there is like all of us here who belong to iwi or hapu, is to get out to our local maraes and make broadband accessible to whānau, you know, like and a centre point, one-stop shop our whānau can actually go to and use the access of free Wi-Fi in order to use the Whānau Tahi app and become closer to be self-managing in terms of the app. In the web,
I just add on to that. So some of you might not be aware, but Whānau Tahi, we have more than one solution. It's not just Navigate. We also have this thing called Connected Care, and it's implemented in 10 DHBs out of 20. And basically the way that I figure that system works is it's the glue between different systems. So it can allow communication to go through, you know, seemingly incompatible systems and get it there. So we're having conversations around getting that integration with Whānau Tahi Navigator. So that's in the pipeline. But yeah, as far as connectivity and things like that, I think that's a great initiative. Yeah, fully supported. Any other parts?
Just on your, we were discussing earlier about management health, the Moxon systems, is there any chance of the two systems talking to each other?
Potentially. So it's a big conversation, right? So we do have an agreement with MedTech, which is a one-way communication. It'd be great if we could have two-way, right? So we can get it going both ways. Yeah, it's problematic. It takes a while to jump through all the hoops that you need to do. So don't want to shoot myself in the foot and say we'll do it next week, but it's something that we want to have happen, yeah.
What is the appetite? We want to work with third-party software. So you need to pay for some other software. What would we need to do to make them integrate? Is that a reality at this stage?
Yeah, so technically yes. The hard part is the conversations at the high level. So you've got to get all the right people, so all your ducks in a line, get the right people to agree to it, because everyone has their own vested interests. So I'm not saying it's possible, it's a long journey.
We've got a number of databases that we want to link to Whānau Tahi. Of course, our data is much larger, it's a much bigger picture for our whānau.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you, awesome.
Yeah, the IDI, like all the different, yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely a goal to create like basically a one-stop shop, right? The Whānau water version of an app, but it takes some time. Okay, we're going way too long. I'm about to hand it over to Kristen. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Sin Chancellor Tōku Ingoa. I'm going to pre-apologise just if the flow of this doesn't go as I planned. One of the gentlemen in this group was out getting his boogie on, that pink last night, and I'll leave you to guess who, and so I'm not entirely sure what the flow goes, but I'll go through it. So yeah, I'm a project manager with Takoto, which is our collective impact initiative based in West Auckland. We have, our common agenda is based around reducing obesity for whānau and supporting building health literacy across the workforce. So I don't know how many people have worked with Collective Impact. This was a 2-3 year program. It started with a year of trying to figure out what Collective Impact actually is, and then a very rushed push to get a lot of whānau on board. So we got 262 whānau, and then these lovely kaiarahi here had to figure out how to manage those caseloads. So what we looked at with Whānau Tahi was how do we use the system, how do we use the data to inform our practice, and then how do we start to change how we input data to keep refining and getting more effective. So this was our logic model. If you've done anything around these kind of logic models, you can see is a lot of outcomes, a lot of indicators to be measuring, and this was done also before we had our full activities and everything kind of figured out. So this was too complicated. We have now gone over the next year. This is our new logic model. In terms of what we're measuring, we're sticking only to the ones that have the black line outlined in it, and then we've got a few key indicators that we track against those that I think Brad is going to talk to a little bit after. So this is kind of our way of looking at how we start to use the data to inform our practice, and again also how we use the practice to inform our data. So these key indicators, key outcomes are from 2 years of working with whānau and are really kind of from the ground up what matters to them so that we know what to measure. This is how we used to talk about one of the things that we developed along the way with Snoopy. So one of the things that we realised with 240 whānau is you have different levels of engagement. The under the radar ones are those whānau who get referred into a service and don't necessarily know what they're signing up for. So the benefits of collective impact being that you can track those whānau, you hold them on the books for the full 2 years. So we use this as a way to look at the different engagement strategies that you can take to bring whānau to the next bit in the zone. And then the flying and the soaring again are the different categories as they become self-managing. To soaring is like our whānau champions, so they're leading health initiatives within their whānau. I'm going to go back. So a lot of what we've done within how we use Whānau Tahi is not to hard code these things, but to use things like the assessments to kind of test our thinking around this, to see if it's correct, to see if our under the radar category is true, and to look at the different levels of strategies, communication strategies that actually get that shift over time. As we develop this, I think we'll look at hard coding it so that you can start to then track against those outcomes, those indicators, the specific assessment questions, so you can really see which ones are working for what outcomes, if that makes sense. And so these are our assessments that we've developed, our assessment tools. So a lot of these are still focused on the practitioner, how they can use these tools to work with whānau to identify the key areas that they want to work with in their health and well-being, but there are specific questions in there that we then link to those outcomes and indicators that I showed you before. So we can see them shift over time through these specific assessments. And then the next thing that we did as well was to look at coding. So this is again, not hard-coded into the system, but specific codes that we use throughout our activity input. And again, this links back to how we figure out where our impact is really making if it's really making an impact, what specific activities are creating outcomes for our whānau. Is it our Facebook group sessions? Is it group sessions? Is it Kai nutrition workshops? So you can start to see where our specific activities are really creating impact. And now I think Brad is going to talk.
Sure, Kristen. So I'm just going to give a few examples of some of the dashboards that have been created for our frontline practitioners as a result of all that money that Christian just spoke about. And so we've got 3 kaimahi here. So at Kristen's level we can track the caseload by practitioner, and I've just taken a subset of that 261, it's about 88 whānau that we're looking at. They can then look at, of that 88 whānau, where they are in terms of their categorisations. They can then look at by owner, by category, and making sure they've got a nice balance of whānau, so they're not loaded up with too many under the radar versus too many soaring and things like that. Through the assessment tools that Kristen talked about earlier, we can then look at the baseline of our whānau. So in terms of the 88 whānau, 58 of them were classified as obese in terms of the BMI classification, and 60 of them were classified as substantially increased risk based on their waist circumference. And so this allows our practitioners to focus on our target cohort of whānau to say, hey look, these are the focus areas for our whānau based on the results of what they're telling us through the surveys or through the assessment tools. Likewise for our diet indicator and our physical activity hour indicator. So the first one was basically how many days a week are they eating fruit and vegetables, or 5+ a day. And so we can see that 31 of our whānau were eating 5+ every day, but there was a majority of the cohort was not eating that every day. Likewise for our activity hours, 30 of them were in the sort of healthy range, and the rest were either low or no activity at all. And again, that allows our kaimāhi to focus on those whānau. So within the system, and using Power BI, we can actually, for example, click on this and then get a list of the whānau that we want to work with and who owns that whānau, and then start planning and developing goals and setting some activities and appointments as well. And so that's all achieved through Whānau Tahi. Again, we've got our, this is some of our snapshot data. So this is what whānau are telling us, and this is self-reported information. So on a scale of 1 to 5, have they got the skills and knowledge or education to manage their health on a daily, weekly basis? So obviously only one of that cohort felt comfortable that they could do that, and the majority needed some education around that. Likewise with the knowledge of programs or services within their community that they can access to support them. Again, the majority didn't know the programs or services that they could link into to support their needs. Again, we can focus on that as well. This is just a snapshot of the activities that Kristen talked about earlier. So we can see out of all our engagements, the number of emails, face-to-face contacts, Facebook posts, group sessions, phone calls and texts that we've engaged with for whānau. Likewise, we can see the type of that engagement in terms of the topic, so the activities, whether it was assessment, whether we talked to them about achieving and attaining goals, whether it was a health-specific topic that we were covering around the condition, whether it was a Kai or nutrition-specific topic. So we've got a whole range of activities that we can code up as part of that. Then we can start looking at the changes as a result of our interventions. And so this one is just an example on our weight change. So 5 of our whānau have lost more than 10 kgs worth of weight, 13 within the 5 to 10 range. And so that's based on looking at the baseline assessment and looking at subsequent follow-up assessments. We can then look at drilling down on this and gaining some insights and okay, hey, of my whānau that have lost weight, what were the activities or what was the intervention that we provided to them? Was it we were getting more success through Facebook motivational messages versus face-to-face or group sessions covering Kai nutrition or health-specific information? Likewise, on the contra, is where our whānau have possibly gone backwards. What were some of the interventions that we aimed at providing and may not have been as appropriate for this type of whānau? We can also look at drilling down and looking at their category or their baseline assessment and things like that. So this is the type of information that we wanted to give back to our practitioners so that they're using the data that they're collecting to help inform their practice and change their approaches to be more effective with their interventions. And as an example, we haven't built this yet, and so we're working with our Whānau team for around this. You can have a big dashboard that's linked all together, and you can say, look, let's click the button and look at this whānau, and then it'll filter the different activities that I talked about earlier, and then drill down on a specific whānau. So now what I'm going to do is just take you through a bit of an impact analysis. And so this is a view within the system for those that are not familiar with Whānau Tahi. This is the home page, I guess, for our frontline practitioners to go to, and it's a plan page. And I'm just going to explain it quite briefly just so that everyone's got context behind it. The black dot is our whānau. The second column, blue dots are the whānau members. The red dot is for whānau level outcomes. That leads us on to the third column in blue. Those are all our outcomes that the whānau prioritise. So we can see that there's 2 outcomes, whānau level outcomes that the whānau prioritise, and then a handful of individual level outcomes that Tāne has prioritised within the system. Then on the far right, we can see all the services and support going into those outcomes. By definition, we can see all the investment and funding going into that paying and into that whānau as well. If we just go down to this section, this is all the activities, goals, assessments, appointments, etc. that are involved in the whānau plan. And so as you click on each button, it's dynamic and it filters this section down here so that our practitioners can focus on just the activities that relate to them. Now, because we have all this information and this data collected in the system about what whānau are wanting to achieve, what funding is going into achieving that, and all the activity involved in achieving that, we can then look at starting the conversation around an SROI or an impact analysis. And so if we flip that information into a logic model, and this is just a bit of a plug, we've got Steve and John at the back there running a logic model workshop tomorrow, so if you want to learn more about them, go to that workshop, they're the experts around that. I'm sure they'll be shaking my head at me. Anyways, so we've got the whānau situation, and so in this example, it was 3 whānau. Fathers of 4, they were obviously obese, they had diabetes, CVD, they had gout, they wanted to achieve a better diet, they wanted to improve their physical activity levels, improve their mental well-being, and they wanted to get better access to services and really understand the health system. We shift across to the second column. That looks at all our activities and outputs that we provide for the intervention into the whānau. So that's the Whānau Tahi process, all the assessments, the parenting program, community nursing, etc., etc. I'm not going to read all of it out. Then we shift across to the third column. That looks at all the outcomes that have been achieved as a result of that intervention. And then the far right column, that's our long-term impact that our whānau can achieve as a result of all these activities. Now, to complete our impact analysis, we need to understand what the costs were of that intervention. And likewise, we need to understand the value that was created through that intervention. And so we know that because that's all collected in the system. So that's all our priority resource, our clinical resource, our specialist resource. We need to include any volunteer time, other resources that whānau had access to as well. And so for those 3 whānau, and this is over 18 months period as well, that was $27,040. Oh, there we go. 3 whānau over 18 months. So we know the cost, or we know the investment that went into these 3 whānau to achieve that. Now what we need to do is look at valuing up these outcomes. And we assign them with what we call a financial proxy. I won't talk through all of these values, but I'll talk to a couple of them. So the first one we've already spoken about earlier, which was the improved motivation, and that was that outward bound course. That was valued at $2,580. So for one of our whānau to achieve improved motivation over an annual period, we're going to assign that with $2,580 worth of value. Likewise, with our improved diabetes and our improved CVD, those were costs of the Treasury CBACS tool. So the annual cost for someone with diabetes was $4,636. For someone with CVD was $8,075. So our rationale behind that was we reduced, we improved their diabetes and CVD, therefore we reduced their cost. And so that's what we used to assign the value to that one. For the improvement in diet, we looked at the cost of the nutrition program. Happy to have any other rationale behind or other values as well. This is just what we talked about in our exercise. For the improvement in physical activity, we looked at the cost of a personal trainer over a 12-week period. And so to achieve a similar result from the program that this fund achieved, we said they could probably achieve the same result if they had a personal trainer for 12 weeks, so we assigned that value for that. So that was kind of the exercise that we undertook to come up with these values. Anyways, at the end of that, came up with a value of $22,021. Now that's for one whānau for 12 months. Now we need to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples. So 3 whānau for 18 months, we extrapolate that over, and that's 99k. Now, that gives us an SRI of 3.7 to 1. So at that stage, what that little number at the end says, so every dollar that we've invested in these 3 whānau over that 18-month period, $3.7 worth of social value has been created. That's not cost savings, that's social value under this exercise. Under the principles of social value, we need to acknowledge that there could have been other influences in their whānau achieving these outcomes. That's attribution, contribution. We also need to acknowledge that possibly not all these whānau experience the outcome over 12 months or 18 months. So we need to be a bit conservative and pull that number back a bit. For this example, I'm going to do a crude cutback by 40%. That'll take us down to 59,000 and give us a 2.2 to 1 SROI ratio. So for every dollar that we've invested in these whānau, $2.2 worth of social value has been created. So that's for 3 whānau. If we extrapolate that over our 240, ideally you could times that by 80. I can't really do that because not all whānau are the same. But even if 1 in 6 whānau experience similar changes as a result of this, we're talking in the results of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of social value created. This is by no means an SROI analysis. It's just using those principles to apply a crude impact analysis and start those conversations around how we're going to start valuing our efforts or our impact using these principles. So that's that. Time now. Is there any questions? Well, that's the last slide. Around that? Or any comments?
We looked at the whole whānau plan. That's the health of COVID. Would that do it the whole overall whānau plan?
So this year, so if we go back to, that's a good point. So here, so this was the whole whānau plan, not just the health specific, not just the services funded by Ministry of Health or the WDHB, or not just the services provided by the MOE. So this analysis was looking at the whole whānau, all the investment going into that whānau, and all the outcomes achieved as a result of the investments coming from those funders. So if we go back to there, all of these are looking at the whole whānau plan and all of the outcomes. And so also this acknowledges the multiple investments from the multiple funders as well. So the system is dynamic enough to manage all the contract funding in from the 20 plus funders that it's managing at the moment, how it gets attributed to all the whānau, the results that that investment is achieving, and then obviously it's able to report back on each investment from each funder using this.
Can I take you to task on the fact that you're talking about obesity, which is and I'm sorry, I think obesity is a negative, it's not working for our people, where you took all your results of whānau outcomes, and those were the measures, not BMIs, not weight, not circumference measures. You know, we already get embarrassed when we go into the doctors, we stand on the scales and we're told we're fat. We don't need that. But those motivate me. Getting on BMIs don't do anything but disenfranchise me from the public health care system. So I take issue with the fact that we've got an obesity model.
Yep.
That we should have a wellness model around that.
Yes, that's exactly right. So in the Takoto measurement framework, there is those BMIs and waist measurements and things like that. There is a whole mix of measures around this and well-being type measures as well. And so when they used the initial logic model that they had, and a lot of it was that type of measure. But they've they've changed it to around changes in behaviour, changes in confidence and things like that as well. So there's some new indicators that they're using going forward as a result of that as well. They're still capturing this type of information because that's still some hard measures to track, hard changes for whānau, but our whānau don't want to just be measured against these indicators to show that they're moving forward. They want to get this, they still need to change their behaviour, they change their knowledge, they change their confidence and things like that, which is why they've changed a lot of their measures that you're using to show whānau progress in line with that?
A simple measure could be that their fitness is improved, though their weight has not changed.
Yep.
They become healthier by that, by virtue of that. But if we don't show that to them, they get discouraged with their BMI and their weight has improved, increased, or it's static. That's all Kristen's fault.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's why we have to commit as
He
well.
promised he'd equal me. So, absolutely. And so when we bring whānau onto Tato, we never say, this is a program to reduce obesity. Never. It's all about improving healthy lifestyles and that sort of thing. Part of it as well comes from the fact that as a collective impact initiative, we have partners like the DHB involved. And so we had to look at measures that spoke to them as well as spoke to our whānau. So we do things like the health assessment because some whānau are motivated by dropping weight, but all of their planning and all of that sort of thing is based around strengths-based, improving nutrition, improving physical activity. And then our assessments, the ones that we really focus on, are the Tato snapshot, which is a holistic health. So, absolutely. And the way we talk about it when we're with whānau and with people who understand strengths-based is around improving nutrition.
Good stuff.
Yeah, just to extend on that conversation we just had over there, I think what it's highlighting here is the secondary diseases that drop in obesity. So it is a wellness approach.
The challenge with picking up obesity with the secondary issues is that you get caught up in obesity, you don't think about the secondaries because you're so focused on I've got to lose weight. And that's, I agree.
This forces you to look at secondary diseases.
And that's what we want to do. So get rid of obesity. Just get rid of it. Stop talking about it.
Although the way that we're looking at it here is what's the opportunity cost? That's the way they're looking at it, not what the investment is.
For 100 years we've been told we're obese. Has it helped us? And I'm not saying we don't focus on outcomes associated with better health, which might lead to weight loss.
Yeah, but that's the point. Where does that spend go?
Well, we change by removing the words that have been negatives for so many years, and we don't use them. We should not use them. We're Māori amongst Māori. Stop using them.
Or we can change mindset.
True.
Yeah. So what else can you do differently so you're not presenting that obese space?
Yeah.
So it's just changing for the mindset. But if we give the onus back to whānau, then they become responsible for themselves, and they will determine is obesity an issue, and what can they do differently so that it's not presenting in that space. For those people so that I am well. But those healthy whānau lifestyles I'm looking at, what can I do differently so people can go obese, but be for more whānau. So it's going to affect whānau. Well, it's the whānau water, it's not
true.
So just to be, in all of this, we talk about whānau water, we talk about our Māori needs and the cultural needs. Is there anything that you've got in there that's got a cultural proxy for it?
Not in this initiative, but I will pass that back up to the crowd. We haven't done any. Sneha, John, have you looked at any cultural financial proxies off the top of your mind?
Of which one for this?
For an example of a cultural outcome and a financial proxy that we may have used?
We haven't looked at anything specifically, but again, this is the SROI is a stakeholder engagement process. So what you define as cultural outcome may differ from one person to another. So say, for example, for some person, the cultural outcome may be engaging into Tureia, whereas for some it may be just going trying to perform haka. So your proxy may differ for each outcome, and that is informed by the stakeholder and different other filters. So that's the beauty of SROI, and that's also the challenge as well.
Also, when we did, I don't know if you saw yesterday, the Taitamariki SROI video, so that started out originally, we were looking at bringing in the value of culture into that analysis. What we found though is that to do that then reduces what you're talking about. So it becomes like a tick box thing of, oh, I can recycle my that sort of thing. And we found that it underpinned everything that we did. So then to put a dollar value to it, you can't show the true value, when it comes into all the outcomes and that sort of thing. So at a broader level, in terms of proxies, we got rid of the value in it. It can still be from the whānau perspective, what is culture to them, and then maybe linking it to other proxies, but at a high level.
It feels like a cop-out actually, because from a Māori perspective, it's what we're actually trying to show as an overarching goal. Where we do value our culture. So not to have it as one of those the whānau culture values, so you've got relationships, you've got hearts, you've got knowledge. Those are mainstream values, whereas our culture to the world so as a whānau order, I think it's something that should actually be challenging. That culture is
and so when I say value, I don't mean that it's not valued. I mean that we can't put a dollar figure to it because it's exactly.
I want to add that this was what the whānau prioritised, so culture wasn't one of their priorities as part of this plan. So that's why we didn't go down the route of trying to value it. But yeah, maybe we can have some conversations now about what would be some values that we could use for some of our cultural outcomes. I don't know if anyone has any insight about that.
Which DXPs and which Ngāti get more in terms of those. So that would be the ultimate outcome. So the whole thing should be based around improved wellness and improved health.
I think what we still have to be able to us to be what is value. I mean, there was building up the cultural values in that space. So to default to the DHB model, I don't think is incorrect. I think that really probably would have had value.
No, I'm not saying default to the DHB model, but the metrics are available within those DHB.
But the metrics comes from
I think the problem here is to that conversation is I think that the programs within this approach for each provider can be tailored to what services that upward that organisation provides within this program. Those are a bunch of programs and activities that we provide as a whānau provider. Just wondering whether that can be
maybe so I'll give you some examples of some of the outcomes that we're seeing come through from whānau in the Te Ao Māori domain. So for TPM we've got 6 outcome domains. One of them is whānau and Te Ao Māori. And so some of the outcomes that we're seeing from whānau is improved knowledge or increased knowledge of my whakapapa, or increased connection with whenua, or increased connection back to my marae and things like that. And so those are the outcomes that we're seeing that whānau are prioritising and working towards achieving. And so they're evidencing that they're achieving those outcomes. But the next step is actually what is the value for whānau for those outcomes. I don't have the answer to that. I'm hoping that the conversations can be held across our communities and ideally around it.
What are the values that they would want to put in these types of systems?
That's right. And different whānau will value improved knowledge of whakapapa differently in different areas as well. So it's understanding how we value it, and then we can come up with value that's appropriate for whānau in our community versus that. I don't have that answer at the moment, but if we've got that in the audience at the moment, that would be great.
National provides a corridor around measuring wellness, which is a good one actually in terms of what does it look like in terms of whānau, the individual, marae and iwi. So there's a lot of kind of values that he mentioned within this corridor, and I recommend that people who have a chance to go along with the Nation do that. Another thing too that's accessible is a thing called Moriomaka, and that's another online project that has been done in terms of measuring wellness, measuring the Māori. So The trick would be is to align what our gurus are saying about wellness and mode and aligning it with that. I mean, you know, to make sense of how we look at it in the cultural kia mode.
Kia ora. I see another hand in this area.
Yeah, I know nothing about all this stuff. But what I wanted to say is that I was looking at Kaialiki resource and I'm thinking whānau ora, and then I see clinical and specialist, which I think is a totally different approach to the whānau, and wondered if there, like in the future, where there would be some sort of study that looks at, we might have already done it, and I looked at what is plainly whānau ora approach to the whānau, and then have a control group of what is the status quo or what the system normally does, what they call mainstream. I hate that too because I feel like we're all part of mainstream anyway, but if we're talking about mainstream, so looking at a mainstream whānau as the control, and then looking at the whānau ora approach, and then just seeing the value from there, and that to me, whānau ora is the Māori, you know, the multicultural approach. So I don't know if you've actually already done that or something, but you know, why research down the back here? Yeah, you know, in collaboration with the intelligence group to see how they can be captured. Yeah. Oh, this is one thing.
We haven't done that, only because way from what they are all, as you know, they're all under a whānau ora kaupapa, so it would be interesting to show, I guess, the effectiveness of a whānau ora approach, acknowledging all the relational work that our Kaialiki does, build that trust. And I guess it's also about building the capability and capacity of the whānau. So when you talk about that mainstream approach, it's possibly doing activities and services to them, and then stepping out, maybe getting some short-term wins, and then going back into those old practices again, and they're not really building that longer-term knowledge, skills, resilience for them to self-manage, which is what ultimately we want. And so maybe that's the whānau ora integrated service delivery brings. So, I know, do we want to put our whānau further there? Any other questions? I think we're just running out of time anyway. Maybe time for one more? No? Going. Kia ora. Oh, one more.
Will those presentations be on the slides? So
yes, I don't know if it'll be on the tab, so I don't understand how that works. But it'll be available somewhere.
So can we access those?
It's not on the app right now, only because I just did a 10 minutes for this, but it will be available somewhere. So I don't know if it's going to be an email link sent out after the conference or whether it's through the app, but they will be available somehow. Kia ora, and on that note, I'll just call on Matakana to close us off. Let's close off then. Me kara kia tātou, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, kia te whai o tō tātou ara, kia iukarati, me te aroa o te atua, me te whiwhia tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, 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 a, me ne. Kia ora.